Hello, guys. Well, it has finally happened. Jerome Powell has bowed to the pressure by Elizabeth Warren and the other senators, and he has cut rates jumbo. Now, he did not give him the ultra jumbo cut of 75 basis points, because that would have been insane, but he did cut by 50. Of course, Peter Schiff, Robert Kiyosaki, and the other doomsayers are saying this is signaling that the economy is really, really bad and we're going to go for a giant recession. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. They're just trying to cut interest rates back to the neutral rate like they've been saying they're trying to do for like the last year. They originally planned to cut in May, but the economic data was a little too good, so they couldn't actually cut. They finally found an excuse after 2 months of somewhat poor labor market numbers. So they cut. We were expecting 25. We got 50. I think Wall Street was kind of pricing in 50 though, because many of the Wall Street guys wanted 50. Jerome Powell's speech afterwards was also really, really dovish. So that helps us as well because he signaled that he wanted to cut 50 more basis points by the end of the year. Remember, the Fed's overall goal is to cut to about 2.5% eventually. And we're still at 4.75 to 5%. So there's a lot of basis points to cut. They should actually achieve their goal by around mid 2026. So we should see 50 more basis points by the end of this year, and maybe 100 and 150 more basis points by the end of next year. Whoever is president next is going to benefit massively from these cuts, and the economy is probably going to go up. Labor hiring is a little bit down. The Dow didn't really respond to this too much. I think if we only got a 25 basis point cut, we would have actually started tanking a little bit. But the 50 basis points, people have steadied out. Some people are still thinking should we panic because the economy's down, or should we just buy because interest rates are coming down? I think the optimistic projection is eventually going to win out over the pessimistic projection at this point, and I think in about a week or so, we'll probably start going up. It won't be immediate. I think a lot of people are expecting an immediate up from this news. Obviously, that was not going to happen, and we're going to have to wait for a while. And I think Jerome Powell's speech afterwards and what he said afterwards was just as important as his actual cut. This is the Fed's first campaign easing in 4 years. So the committee has gained greater confidence that the inflation is moving sustainably towards 2% and judges that the risks to achieving its employment and inflation goals are roughly in balance, the Fed Reserve statement said. The Fed Reserve on Wednesday enacted its first interest rate cut since the early days of the COVID pandemic, where it cut it down to zero, but that's a different case altogether. With both jobs picture and inflation softening, which is what they were looking for all year, because they originally intended to cut in May, but they were like, yeah, we can't actually cut right now because the data is not there yet. The central bank's Federal Open Market Committee chose to lower its key overnight borrowing rate by half a percentage point or 50 basis points, affirming market expectations that had recently shifted an outlook for a cut half that size. Outside the emergency rate reductions during COVID, the last time the FOMC cut by half a point was in 2008 during the global financial crisis. The decision lowers the federal funds rate to a range between 4.75 to 5. While the rate sets short-term borrowing costs for banks, it spills over into multiple consumer products such as mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. In addition to the reduction, the committee indicated through its dot plot the equivalent of 50 more basis points of cuts by the end of the year. And that is really, really big. That is very, very bullish for the market. And I do think we will see an all-time high before the end of the year. I do think this was kind of political. There was a lot of pressure being applied to Jerome Powell by Elizabeth Warren and co. And several other senators that wanted the economy to rebound. They've been pressuring Jerome Powell all year to cut rates, and they finally got through them because the data showed that he could actually cut. Now, I don't think the doom and gloom projections from Peter Schiff and Robert Kiyosaki are going to come true, because they've been projecting that for 4 years now. Every 2 months, they're like, oh, the economy is going to completely crash. And yeah, they've been wrong for the last 4 years. Anytime they've actually made that, I think the economy is just fine for the most part. I do think it is going to spruce up, and I think hiring, I don't think the labor market is really going to improve all that much, but it should slowly improve into next year. So it'll be more of gradual, and I think that's what they're actually going for. They don't want to be behind the curve, but I think they've actually caught the curve, and the big rate cut was what was needed for the economy. And I do think the stock market as well as the crypto market is going to go up the last week of September. The markets were very, very volatile after he cut because like there was 100-point swings in the Dow every couple of minutes basically after he cut, but we kind of landed on right around where we were. And as for the crypto market, we didn't really move all that much. We're still at slightly above 60K. I expect us to be around this range for another couple of days at least before we start going up. I would just hold on in DCA as usual. I don't think there's too much of a great chance for trading. I don't think we're heading to 48K or 50K or any of that stuff. In other news, Coinbase cannot show it has proof of reserves, and it's getting lambasted by none other than Justin Sun. So Coinbase on its CBBTC and partially on its ETFs are investing in the "Trust Me, Bruh" mantra. And I would actually trust Coinbase more than like other exchanges. Now, FTX notably also did the "Trust Me, Bruh" mantra, and that did not work out very well. But Coinbase is not FTX, and they do actually have a top 4 auditor, being Deloitte, actually audit them every year, and they have actually passed those audits. So they do have their public statements because they're a public company, but they can't show you in the moment proof of reserves. And basically, Brian Armstrong has actually said that, and Justin Sun is making a big deal about it. So, but there's also this, for those just tuning in, Justin Sun is soon to be an owner of WBTC, which is CBBTC's main competitor, and up until CBBTC launch, had a pretty substantial moat around wrapped BTC. So obviously, CBBTC is competing with Justin Sun's product, and that could definitely be part of his criticism. So Justin Sun is saying CBBTC lacks proof of reserve, no audits, and can freeze anyone's balance anytime. Essentially, it's just trust me. And that is true. It is kind of like trust me, because you are basically trusting a centralized custodian. Any US government subpoena could seize all your BTC. There's no better representation of central bank Bitcoin than this. It's dark day for BTC. And Brian Armstrong has actually responded to this. He's saying that we always have audits like every single year. And there's no reason to be afraid of the Coinbase CBBTC. I'm not as convinced by Brian Armstrong on that argument. I do think generally Coinbase is okay because they do actually have the audits. The thing about CBBTC is I think Coinbase's reputation would take too big of a hit, and everyone knows who Brian Armstrong is. And seeing how many years of jail SBF got, I don't think he would actually pull something like that. Knowing that he actually still runs a legitimate and good business, there's no reason for him to actually do that. But I am a little bit weary of this whole "trust me, bro" mantra because people have definitely gotten burned on the "trust me, bro" mantra before. So he is comparing Coinbase to FTX, and Justin Sun is saying, when all exchanges in the industry have already implemented proof of reserves, we are puzzled that Coinbase claims POR is not feasible. And they're claiming POR is not feasible because of the ETF stuff. Like they don't want big institutions don't want to reveal all their transactions and stuff. And Brian Armstrong saying those things are settled generally within a day, and they do have all the reserves. But the CBBTC thing, which Justin Sun is a competitor of, is kind of like a "trust me, bro" thing. And this is what Brian Armstrong has said. Baldilocks here, not sure what this is all about. To be honest, all ETF mints and burns we process are ultimately settled on chain. Institutional clients have trade financing and OTC options before the trades are settled on chain. This is the norm for all our institutional clients. All funds are settled in our prime vaults within about a business day. If you want audits, Deloitte audits us annually. We're a public company. I doubt our institutional clients want people dusting their addresses, and it's not our place to share for them. So obviously that they're saying that. So there is more SEC turmoil as well, as a U.S. lawmaker has accused the SEC of enforcement abuse against crypto firms, which Gary Gensler has definitely engaged in. Gary Gensler is obviously doing this for political posturing. He still wants a higher job within the administration, and he is eyeing for that treasury job, obviously. But his reputation with crypto is not too good. He's determined to redeem that, but I think he's just making it worse and worse. House of Reps members bought up FTX, Donald Trump's token launch, and SEC chairs Gary Gensler at the Dazed and Confused Digital Assets hearing. So if you didn't know, they're doing a series of digital asset hearings in September, starting on the 12th and lasting all the way through like the 28th or something. A Republican lawmaker chairing a House subcommittee overseeing digital assets heavily criticized U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissioner Gary Gensler for inserting politics in regulating crypto firms. I think he's more of regulating crypto firms harshly for his own reputation. He wants to be seen as a hardcore enforcer, but that's not working with crypto. In a September 18th hearing of House Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology and Inclusion, Arkansas's Representative French Hill claimed that Chair Gensler's approach to digital assets had led to confusion and uncertainty in the markets at a Dazed and Confused breaking down the SEC's politicized approach to digital assets hearing. The subcommittee chair suggested alternative regulatory routes for crypto, such as the FIT Act, currently moving through Congress, but that hasn't really been passed yet. Both Schumer and others are trying to move that through Congress. But Gary Gensler is basically just playing politics with crypto. And he's not really liking it. I think Gensler is going to face more questions as this comes along. He's not very comfortable with actually answering them at all. So I think he's going to come under more and more scrutiny, not only by the other party, but also by the Democratic Party as well, as there is a growing number of Democratic congressmen that are not pleased with what Gary Gensler is doing. So Athena was actually hacked. Athena domain. So if you're using it, you have to be careful. The Athena website appears to have suffered a front-end attack. Not good. And users are encouraged not to interact with the platform. That's from the Athena team themselves. There's a front-end exploit, and hopefully you don't actually lose your stuff. And Athena Labs has cautioned users not to interact with any site or application claiming to be Athena, obviously because they are fake. According to social media posts from Athena Labs, the website's domain registrar account was compromised, and the site is currently deactivated until the issue is resolved. So they're basically saying, don't interact with us, don't get screwed. Security firm Blockade likewise warned Athena users who were connected to the site at the time of the exploit to not sign any transactions and to disconnect wallets immediately. MetaMask also issued a warning to Athena users against fake MetaMask sites attempting to use Athena to exploit or defraud users. So there's a big fraud ring around this right now, and you don't really want to be trapped. So like this is just part of the crypto hacks top 1.2 billion for 2024 so far. So yeah, basically if you're connected, please refrain from signing transactions and disconnect your wallet immediately. We're working close with affected partners. More updates soon. So if you're using Athena domains, watch out. Don't sign any transactions. Don't do anything with the app. And lastly, Hex founder, the mighty Richard Hart, has been accused in Finland of tax fraud. Now, Richard Hart has been accused of a lot of things. I don't know if they've ever brought any of these things to justice, but Hex founder Richard Hart, or Richard J. Schuler, should I say, has been suspected of tax evasion in Finland. He's already at the center of an SEC suit, and he does not come back to the United States. Obviously, he's still floating around in a canoe somewhere in the ocean, I think. Now he has issues in Finland, his chosen country of residence, and he might just be moving again. This does not bode well for Hex or Pulse Chain. Richard Schuler, also known as Richard Hart, has been remanded into custody in absentia in Finland, which means like they can't find him, I think. The American founder of Hex and Pulse Chain crypto firms is resident of Helsinki and is suspected of tax evasion and assault, according to a local report. I didn't know about the assault report, but tax evasion, not very surprising for Richard Hart. In the United States, Hart is facing the Securities and Exchange Commission suit for allegedly unregistered securities offerings. Neither U.S. or Finnish authorities can find him. He's probably in the Caribbean somewhere, but we don't really know. Finnish tax authorities joined SEC on Hart's trial, and Hart has not been found, so the SEC cannot actually serve him papers. I think that's one of his strategies, but I think the SEC somehow got around that. They are using like police and detectives to try to find him. So he knew this was coming, and he like fled basically, based on very considerable amount of money in question, the long-term and planned nature of activity. There are grounds to suspect gross tax evasion, and obviously, like, that's not surprising for Richard Hart. Hart's Finnish tax arrears are suspected to amount to several hundred million euros, while the government estimated his 2023 income to be 15.2 million euros, the publication stated. And he's a resident of Helsinki, so he does have to pay those taxes. The police investigation was launched at the request of tax authorities and is continuing in cooperation with the international authorities. No, I don't really know like where his bank accounts are, because couldn't they just freeze his bank accounts if he owes like hundreds of millions of dollars to Finnish authorities? I mean, there's got to be like tons of back taxes and backlog taxes. So that's the condition with Richard Hart. Obviously, him running from 2 countries now instead of 1 doesn't bode all that well for Hex or Pulse Chain. He might not have the money or the time to actually pump his projects. So I don't know, man. I would kind of stay away from Richard Hart projects right now. I mean, I've never invested in Richard Hart projects because I don't really believe. I believe his projects are pure Ponzi. But some of you are really interested in this. But now he's got 2 countries after him instead of 1. So I would consider it twice before investing in his projects. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.